Reset Nation? Welcome back to another great episode of Operation Self Reset. I am Jacob Naraki, and I'm here to inspire, motivate, and get yourself moving in the right direction when it comes to your own personal life. Sometimes in our own personal lives, we're always looking for somebody to help us, right? It's either a parent, a friend. We're searching. But why not go out there and hire a coach? What? Pay somebody for coaching? What? Life coaching? Business coaching? Yep, all of the above. There's a coach literally for everything. Emotional coaching, financial support, financial savings, obviously athletics and health and all that stuff. But the gentleman that I have on today, his name is Mark. He is from Canada. He has an awesome podcast called Natural Born Coaches. And it's all about talking to different coaches. How did they get started? And, what is their specialty? What is it that they love doing with their clients and things like that? And the reason why I feel that it would benefit you, the listener, especially this interview, is because truly coaches get you places a lot quicker than you would by yourself. And yes, is it a financial burden? Of course it is. But anything worth investing in is worth doing. So with that, let's get into the joke for today. Did you hear that joke about the roof? Did you guys seriously hear about that joke about the roof? Never mind. It's over your head. Ding. Ba-doonch. Bad delivery. I got to do better with the deliveries. I know. The reason why we do a joke of the day, to enlighten you, to get you enthusiastic, and to make you laugh, smile, or grin, or just probably turn me off. So whatever. I apologize. I'm going to keep on doing it. I think it's fun. It kind of lightens it up, even though I'm in the basement here talking on a microphone by myself. So if I can entertain myself, I guess I can do anything. So with that being said, let's talk to Mark from Natural Born Coaches and see how coaching can help you move forward in your own personal reset. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have on Mark Mawhinney. Mawhinney, right?
That's close enough.
Okay, all right, sorry. But he is from Natural Born Coaches. He has a daily podcast that allows you, the listener, to understand coaching, to see if it's right for you. Mark is an entrepreneur. He's from Canada. He has built businesses, and he is now trying to help others in their own endeavors. Mark, my man, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Jake. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Well, first of all, let's talk about the obvious question is, some people are going to be listening to this and they're going, coaching. Well, that sounds ridiculous. A, I don't have the money for it. B, I don't even know why I need it. And C, I don't even think like I'm a person that needs a coach. I'm a one-hit wonder. I can do everything on my own. What do you say to those types of people that are in denial of not getting a coach to assist them in probably any area of life?
That's it's actually a pretty common objection. Over the last few years, things have been getting better in terms of the public's acceptance of the coaching industry, but there's still a lot of people that kind of scratch their heads. And even when they ask me what I do, now you want to really confuse them, you tell them that you coach coaches, and that really they kind of do a double take. So the thought, of course, when people hear the word coaching, is they picture the basketball coach with the clipboard and the whistle around their neck, and like that's what they think of with coaching or training athletes. And it's getting better, as mentioned, with the public perception. More and more people are starting to realize the benefits of having a coach, and it's getting easier. But that being said, I think we're still a little ways away from complete acceptance of people realizing that they have to use a coach. But it's just amazing. Like, I see it every day in my own coaching business, and also with a daily podcast interviewing successful coaches. I just see the power of coaching, and I'm 100% believer, true blue believer in the power of coaching, because I've seen how powerful it is in people's lives and even my own life. I've been through a lot of ups and downs through my entrepreneurial journey, and I've always done better when I've had a coach and a mentor to help me along. So I'm a huge supporter of coaching.
Oh, for sure. And obviously the people that are listening are not in grade school sports or high school sports or activities where they have a coach. Now they might have a boss that's more known as a mentor, but as you grow up, you don't think of coaching as a necessary part of your life. But if you reflect on history of all the great inventors, creators, people that have built things out of nothing, there's always somebody standing next to them or behind them. Albert Einstein had a coach that kind of guided him and pushed him. Now, you have no idea, and I can't even remember this guy's name, but I just read a book about failing forward, and they talk about how Albert Einstein had this coach. And he gets no, he gets no fame or fortune. He isn't in, the big books, but Albert Einstein is, so there's always somebody behind somebody that's doing something great. So with that being said, how do you approach somebody that needs assistance but is kind of apprehensive of opening up to that level of wanting a coach come into their life?
Well, I know with my own business, I'm lucky that I have people coming to me a lot more now, and especially with the podcast. Like my audience is there's some general entrepreneurs who are in other businesses that can obviously can get ideas from it, but my audience is almost exclusively people who have coaching businesses, and a lot of those people need help, with the business. So when you're in their eardrums every day and they're hearing you and they start to know more about your philosophy and they see that you're legit and you're there to help them, then it makes it a lot easier in terms of getting prospects. I don't do a lot of local business on the ground. My market's fairly small. I'm in New Brunswick, Canada. I'm a Blue Jays fan. I hope you're not a Brewers fan.
Of course I am.
We'll have to do a recap show in the season. We'll see how the teams are doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm in a relatively small province. I mean, there's under 1 million people. We border Maine. We're in that sort of northeastern part of North America. And in my local market, there actually are a few coaches that I'm helping out and working with. So not that I won't work with local people, but almost exclusively it's dealing with people virtually, by Skype or by phone and dealing that way. So it's a really interesting business. I mean, I absolutely love coaching. I love that I'm not tethered to my local market, that I can deal with literally any of the 7 billion people in the world. Now, unless they speak, obviously anything other than English, it's going to be a little tricky.
Right. Well, and that's the cool thing about technology. I mean, it connects us, and a lot of people, put it this way, everybody that's listening to my podcast and your podcast is because of technology. We would not be where we are today, explaining who you are and what I'm all about, if we didn't have Skype and the ability to record it and then post it and via iTunes and all that fun stuff. So truly, yeah, you can connect around the world. But let's boil it down here a little bit. Obviously, yourself, how did you get into this? Was there a mentor that you had going through your journey in life that inspired you to take the step towards coaching other individuals?
Well, I can't really tell a story that I was, 2 or 3 years old and dreaming of being a coach. Like my father was like, Tiger Woods getting him into golf or whatever, right. I was groomed to be a coach. Really, my coaching business rose from the ashes of a business closure. Like I'd mentioned before, I've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. Like I was very successful in the real estate business. I had a real estate company with about 100 employees, agents and employees, and, great market share and everything else. And about 5 years ago, I went through a business closure. It was a case of we grew too big, too fast. The market took a dip, and a lot of things came together just to cause that business to close. And one of the things that helped me through that difficult time, and I've been through ups and downs since then, don't get me wrong, but sure. Something that's always helped me is I've had mentors and people who've coached me along. Even if I didn't consider them an actual coach, I remember one in particular, shortly after that closure. He lives about an hour and a half away, and he's become a great friend and mentor, Rivers Corbett, who I've had on the show. And Rivers owns, he does a lot of stuff. He coaches, he owns a gourmet burger chain here in Atlantic, Canada that's expanding all over the country and internationally. He's doing a lot. And he reached out to me and said, I'd love to meet with you. And I wasn't in any mood to meet with anybody because as you can understand, when you're going through business closure and getting kicked around and attacked, your head's not in that space where you want to get out there and socialize all the time. And I got together with Rivers for a coffee for an hour or so. And my mood just instantly changed. Like he talked to me about some of the things he had been through. He had been through business challenges, and he dealt with depression. And he's been very open about this. So it's not like like I'm sharing anything that, I was supposed to keep private.
Sure.
But he helped me through that. When I spoke with him, I realized, man, like every entrepreneur goes through that. That's the battle scars, and and it's all the cliche things. You pick yourself up and dust yourself off, and what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, and things that your audience has all heard before, but it's true. So Rivers is one person that helped coach me and get me back on my feet, and there's been others along the way. So what I decided when I was trying to choose my next path in life is, what do I want to do? And what I realized was my passion wasn't in real estate anyways. Like, it wasn't like I as much as I enjoyed it and I liked a lot of things about it, I wasn't out there because I loved houses and I loved looking at kitchens and I loved open houses and all this other stuff.
Right.
What I realized was the one constant in my life was always personal development, since I read Think and Grow Rich in high school. And I thought I would love to be involved in the personal development field. And then it comes a question of what with it. And coaching just fit right in there because it had been so beneficial to my life. And I'd actually had some entrepreneurs contact me after the business closure asking for advice. So I was unofficially coaching even then after that closure. And I've been coaching for years throughout my 20s when I was growing my real estate business with my employees. So I've really been a coach all my life. I just may not have identified myself as a coach until the last few years.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it's amazing as you look back on your life and see where you came from, and kind of everything kind of pours together. But no, it's interesting. And what, I guess, when it comes to your real estate business and you realize that it wasn't for you, what was it? Was it the daily grind that you just didn't feel passionate? Was it you were just getting bored? The only reason I ask this is because obviously a lot of people in America and Canada, around the world, don't enjoy what they do, but it, pays the bills, allows you to go on vacation, allow you to go out to eat and enjoy friends and family. But then come Monday, it's that, So I guess let's dive deep into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there was a feeling with real estate. I'd kind of been there, done it, and I got the T-shirt, and
yeah, nice.
And I'd done it for so many years. It was really what I identified myself with since I was 21 years old. I got started in real estate at 21. I looked about 14 or 15 years old. Like, sure. I looked like, really young, and it was all that I'd ever done. And I don't mean to, I don't want to insult any audience members who are in real estate, because real estate was very good to me for, over a decade. So I owe a lot to real estate, and I learn a lot and everything, but I'm not the type of person that felt that I want to be, say, a real estate agent for 40 or 50 years.
Sure.
And there's some people that are doing it still in their 70s, and I've seen even older, that absolutely love it, and that's fine. But me, I built my business up through my 20s. I hit when I was getting close to 30, and I had my son just before I turned 30, and I started to look at it differently, and I thought, it's the passion just isn't there. And it wasn't anything against real estate, just I had done it for so many thousands of days that I was ready for some new things as well. So things happen for a reason. I wouldn't be talking with you today. I wouldn't have met all the great people I've met in the coaching and personal development field had the real estate business not closed.
Yeah, no, for sure. Speaking of all the people that you have talked to and personal development, I guess, what is it that you have learned from these people? Obviously, I bring people on this podcast. I learn so much from these individuals that I speak to, and just like, wow, that was really powerful. What are a couple of powerful things that a couple of the coaches that have come on the show that have opened your eyes? Anything that comes to mind? I know there's probably a million things, but...
I take a lot of notes from every single guest that's on the show. And what I tell people who start listening to the show is you're going to learn something from every single guest. Now, with some guests, you may be taking pages of notes. And then with another guest, maybe you're taking just one or two notes or ideas out of it. But you're going to get something from every single episode.
Sure.
It's such a thrill. I just recently interviewed Jim Cathcart, who's a big personal development guy in California. He's been at it since the 70s. And during the interview, I'd known a lot about him from just reading his stuff and doing some research, but I had no clue that he was actually personal friends with Zig Ziglar and Og Mandino,
nice.
Earl Nightingale. I mean, all these legends. And what I said in the interview, I said, man, this is, as a baseball fan, it's like talking to somebody who used to play with Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle or whatever.
yeah.
And he, so that's one interview that stands out that Jim just told me. Some of the things he told me, I was just like blown away. And I was a little starstruck when he's talking about having dinner with, Og Mandino, and he's good friends with them and all this stuff. So it's so tough to kind of boil that down into a quick answer. One thing I've taken, there's certain themes that come out of when I group these interviews together that I do. And looking back, one of the themes that I've seen from the successful coaches is that they're never satisfied. Like, they're always learning every single day. And even the Jim Cathcart, I had Dr. Tony Alessandra on the show. I've had these, big coaches, and they're still learning. Even though they've been successful for many decades, they're always striving to do more and to learn more. So that would be one thing that I've actually taken from all the guests, is that you never stop learning and improving, and you keep growing.
Oh, for sure. If you're not growing, you're just another plug in the system. And recently, obviously you and I are both into personal development, bettering ourselves. The one way to do that is either to read books, listen to books, go to seminars, things like that, right? Well, I am learning disabled. I have ADHD. And the thing is that when I read a book, I'm like, oh, that's really good. And then I just keep on reading. Oh, man, that's a really good point. And I highlight in the book. But to be honest, am I ever going to go back into these books and read those highlights? So now I actually implemented my study habits of when I was in high school into the way I read these books. I have a notebook next to me. I take I put down the page number. I'm like an active reader, because I realize that if I want to grow to the level where I want to get, and like you just said, you're never satisfied, and you and I actually talked off mic how you and I are both never satisfied on the things that we accomplished. The only way to do that is to really dive deep into something and really learn it, almost like you're studying for the biggest exam of your life, So
Yes.
It's really true.
Yeah, no, I'm a big reader as well, and I do a lot of audiobooks as well. So if I'm going into the grocery store, if I'm driving anywhere, I've got Audible on, on the iPhone.
Yeah.
And basically the only time I have free time I'm not listening to audiobooks is when I'm getting a shower, just because I don't want to damage the phone.
Right.
Basically. And I just went through it with, I recently read a book, Thick Face, Black Heart. I'm not sure if you've read that one by Ching-Ning Chu. And it's not really well known in the Western world. It's got a lot of Eastern business practices in there. It was written in the early 1990s, and that's one book I'll slip in there that the audience should listen to. But I've gone through that book now in the last couple months, probably 3 times.
Wow.
Just to really let it sink in, because there's so many ideas that you can absorb and to implement into your business and your life. And when it comes to personal development books, you're not reading a Harlequin romance novel where you fly through and
Yeah.
It's not a race. You should be taking your time to let the ideas sink in. Think about them. I do a lot of journaling, and just to make sure that you get the most out of those books that you possibly can.
Yeah, for sure. And I know there's people listening going, I've heard this before, but I don't have time. You got to make time, because the only way to let your kids be better in life, to give them better guidance and support, or if you're an individual that's down in the dumps and you're looking for a way to get to that higher level, any position, even if you're at the top pinnacle of your business or corporation, there's always room to grow. And the only way to do that is to do these fundamental things that have been talked about for centuries and centuries, and that's educating yourself, doing whatever it takes to get yourself mentally to that next level. So,
yeah.
All right.
And I will say a quick thing about time is I've heard that a lot from clients and people I talk to, but there's always more time. Like, you'd be surprised how much time you can squeeze out of a day. When I first started planning the podcast and I committed to doing a daily podcast, well, I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. I just don't have the time where I'm running my business, doing my other stuff, and to do a daily podcast. Now, it's been a lot of work. There's a lot of late nights and early mornings, but you can squeeze a lot of hours that you didn't realize that you had if you just shift your priorities. So maybe it's, it's a few hours a day, less TV, or you could take something out and you shift it over to put it towards your actual growth, and maybe it's building a business on the side or whatever. There's always more time, but you just have to really look hard at where you're spending your time and see where you can shift it and allocate it elsewhere.
For sure. My main man, Zig Ziglar, God rest his soul, always talked about it's amazing how much you can get done the day before vacation. You have a list of like 17 things, all at different stores, but you knock it out of the park and you feel energized and you feel good. And that's because you're going on vacation. You're leaving where you're at. So you're all jacked up. If there's only a way that we could capture that same energy and that same ability into our daily lives, how much more productive would we be, but
well,
that's
yeah,
just
like
the way it goes.
if I said to you right now, Jake, that I'll let's say there's some task you've been putting off because it's going to take too long, you think, or whatever, you just don't have time today. If I said to you, I'll pay you $1 million if you get this done by midnight.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And you would move pretty fast, and you would shift your priorities around, and you would get it done. So that's a trick that I actually use, and I recommend that clients use as well. Is you picture that you're going to get $1 million if you finish that task. And it's a little bit of, tricking yourself and playing with your mind, but it's actually pretty powerful if you do it that way. Yeah. And in reality, you may actually get $1 million from completing that task, because that idea that you're working on could turn into a huge business opportunity. You don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm all about tricking the mind, nonverbal communication, power positions, all that stuff. Anything that I can do to get myself in that next level, I will do it. And it's amazing the power of the mind. It's just a question is, are you aware of your surroundings? And number two, do you enjoy, I guess, pulling the best out of yourself on a daily, basis? So
yeah, and you shouldn't feel bad about tricking your mind too, because your mind plays tricks on you. If
sure.
You're not paying
Good
attention,
point.
As you know, with your mind, if you're not feeding it with positive stuff, it's going to naturally gravitate to that, having that little voice starting to whisper negative things and trying to plant seeds of doubt and fear. I mean, that's natural human basic stuff. So your mind's constantly, working against your goals. You may just not realize it. So it's a way of kind of fighting back, I guess, against the mind and tricking it for a change.
Oh, for sure. Let's go into coaching. Obviously, you are a coach. You speak with other coaches. I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear your explanation. I'm assuming there's coaches pretty much for everything, right?
Oh man, there's so many niches that I hadn't even heard about that are out there. Like it's not. I mean, the people I talk to, a lot of them are, say, life coaches, which are a general, broad based.
Right.
Then you've got, the business coaches and the different sub niches within that, like sales coaches. We've had a lot of sales coaches on Natural Born Coaches. You've got the fitness coaches. You've got, back to business can be time management. You could people have really niched down, which is great. Like, I'm a big believer that you can have more success if you actually focus and narrow your niche. When I started coaching, I actually had a general broad-based target market. I said, I'm going to work with any entrepreneur, a small business owner out there. And I thought, this is great. I've have so many potential clients because there's so many entrepreneurs out there, and I'm going to make so much impact and money and everything else. And the problem with that was it was too wide. There's too much competition out there, and it's too hard to get your voice out there and so on. So I put a concerted effort in to narrow down my niche, which I would recommend people do if they are coaches. I always recommend that. And it makes it easier to dominate if it's a slightly smaller niche and you get more clear on it. So I looked at who I enjoyed working with in my business. I'd been working with some coaches, and I had a lot of fun helping other coaches. And I said, I'm going to focus on that coaching niche. And eventually that led to what I'm doing with the podcast. So that's a very powerful lesson, is don't always assume that by casting a wide net out there to as many people as possible, you're going to do better. A lot of times you're only going to get lukewarm results, or it's so hard to be heard. Start narrowing down your niche and narrow it down as much as possible. Now, you don't want to get so crazy that if you're a coach, you say, I'm only going to work with left-handed plumbers from Wisconsin that have
Right.
blue eyes. Like, obviously you get to a point where there's very few people like that, but you do have to narrow it down from that broad-based general market.
Yeah, and and taking that a step back to the average person that's riding their car, running, cleaning, whatever, that goes with life too. Your goals, really boil it down what you want in your life. It'd be great to earn $1 million, right? Cool. But, how are you going to go about that? What is it that you want the money for? Is it to go on vacation, to buy a Rolls Royce? What, you know what I mean? Really focus in and dial it down into something that's really tangible that you really get, as opposed to the broad, I just want to be wealthy. Is it just to clear up your debt and then to enjoy your family? Is it to clear your debt and then give the rest of the money, or donate $100 per month to a charity, whatever it is, really be focused on something that you really find enjoyable for yourself. So I guess if I was average Joe listening to this right now, and I was thinking, I'm thinking maybe I do need help in a certain area. What is, I guess, a reoccurring theme? What's something that people are always reaching out to you and going, hey, this is a problem. Now, I understand that you personally are in the business space, entrepreneurship, all that stuff, but let's broaden it out a little bit. For the average person that is at a traditional job, what is something that they could utilize from a coach? Like, what is it? Time management, productivity, focusing? What do you think is the underlining / they could use in their life that maybe they're not resonating with?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because there's so many things that people come to coaches for when it comes to issues. Everything that a person comes to a coach about, at the end of the day, whatever they're labeling it usually any sort of blocks in their life come down to fear. They just may not realize it. They're afraid of something. So if somebody wants more money, then you look at it and you say, okay, well, why aren't they building something on the side to get a business going, and then they can leave their 9 to 5 and go to that business? The reason why is probably they're fearful. They're fearful of failing. They don't want to look stupid. They're afraid of what their friends and family or someone else might think, or just anything there that relates back to fear. The thing that I hear from a lot of people, obviously, it's money. Like it's
sure.
Yeah. That old saying, follow the money. But that being said, it's not always just about money. There's usually something else that's out there. Why does somebody want the money? And you have to dig a little bit deeper, and it varies from person to person. So we'll usually hear as coaches that it's something to do with money, or they're just not fulfilled, feeling happy. Like a lot of people grew up when they were younger than us, in their teens or 20, and they had so much hope, things that they want to do with their lives. And now they're getting up into 30, 40 years old, and they've lost that hope and that joy and optimism, and they're just rather blah. Even though they have another 40 or 50 years left, they don't see it getting any better. Right. And what we have to do as coaches is we have to rekindle that optimism that they had back when they were younger, and when they had big dreams and ideas about doing different things. And we have to let them know that, hey, you can still do this. It's not too late. There's stories of artists who got their start in their 80s, and authors as well, and became best-selling authors and successful artists and everything else. I mean, it's age is just a number. So that's a big goal of coaches, is we have to be the second set of eyes looking at the person and let them know that, hey, you could do it. We give them the pep talk, but then we help direct them and get them there.
Yeah, like you said, sometimes when you're in the moment, you don't reflect and see what the underlying problem is or the situation that you're really in. And the nice thing about coaches is that they take a non-biased approach, outside perspective. They're not related to you. They're not their friend. They don't know really anything about you except by you explaining your situation, and they're able to uncover things that you might not seem as that big of a deal, that are the red flags, that you just deal with on a daily basis, that they're like, whoa, you got to stop doing A, B, C, and D. And they're like, really? Oh, wow, I never thought of it like that. And that's the great thing. Now, the bad part is money. It takes money sometimes, and I hate to use the line, it takes money to make money, but at the same time, if you want to start to get your finances in order and you're thinking, well, I don't have any money to give to somebody to help me with my situation, well, what you have been doing for the last year, 10 years, 5 years, whatever, has not been working, right? So you need assistance into figuring out a game plan. If you're a small business owner and every month you're negative, well, there's something going on and you're just not seeing it. So that's where you need to reach out, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, you have to be creative too. When it comes to money, a lot of people look at it very black and white, and I'll give you an example with the podcast. When I first started doing the podcast, I was absolutely swamped with editing. And being a podcast host, how much of a pain editing is. I absolutely hate editing. I'm not like an audiophile that really enjoys going in there and playing around with the sounds, all that other stuff. It's cool to know how to do it. I did it for a while, and I'm like, I really don't enjoy taking a couple hours to edit a show, but I want the show to sound good for my audience. I don't want to sound like it's being done on a walkie-talkie or a tin can fan or anything else. The problem I had was I had spent so much money on this podcast, again, as you know, with equipment and all the other things and that you invest into your podcast. So I thought I really, for a daily podcast right now, can't allocate the revenue towards the editing, because it's so much money to get an editor in there and to help you to do that. And it was interesting what I did. I looked at it from a different point of view and thinking outside the box. I found an editing company and a great editor, and I basically put a proposal to them. I needed a sponsor for the show. I was planning to go after sponsors, 6 months down the road, but things were going really well with our download numbers and everything else. I said, I'm going to go for a sponsor earlier than expected. And I spoke to this editing company and I said, why don't we work something out where you can get a sponsorship on the show? You'll handle my editing, and then it's not going to be so much money for me to edit because you have a sponsorship, and it's win-win. You're being creative, you're bartering, you're working something out, and they agreed to it. And that's I'll put a really quick shout out. It's 317sounddesign.com. Jen Eds has that company, and they've been great in terms of dealing with editing for me. So you have to be creative. Maybe you can't pay them as much money as you need to whatever supplier that you want to get help from, but there's got to be something else that you can do for them that can help make it work rather than just paying them the money. Maybe you can help them with something else, and you could be creative to make it win-win.
Oh, for sure. Mark, my man, I mean, obviously you're giving more than you're receiving, and the great thing is you're learning a lot from these coaches. And if anybody that is listening and enjoying my podcast, and if you're thinking that coaching is something that maybe you need or looking for answers to be solved in your life, I would highly recommend checking out Mark's podcast, not only because he interviews coaches, but you get a wide array of different individuals, and you can find the person that jives with your style, and the only way to really get to know somebody is to hear how they speak and present, and then from there you can make an effort to reach out to them and connect with them. But Mark, before we kind of wrap up here, I have a final question that I usually ask, or I try to ask if I don't forget, every single person. And for yourself, what does a self-reset mean to you?
Well, that's a really great question, because as we discussed in the interview, I've had a couple self-resets. I think for me, a self-reset is that moment in time when it just sort of hits you like a thunderbolt out of the sky, and you realize that you have to do something different. That it could be that moment of truth that I experienced when I got out of real estate and wanted to do something else. It's just that gut feeling, that instinct that, hey, I got to change the way I'm doing things, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to make that change. So I love the theme of your podcast. I love the title. I've listened to some of the episodes, and it jives perfectly with everything that I'm saying with it. I think that throughout our lives, there's different times that we're going to have a reset. And it's during those times it has to be ourselves doing it. It's not going to, at the end of the day, take coaches, for example. A coach can't do a reset for a person. They have to have something from within that wants to change. We can help lead them there, but if a person doesn't want to change and doesn't want to reset their life, then they're not going to, regardless of how good the coach is. So I love the title of the podcast, and that's sort of my thoughts on reset and don't be afraid of resetting. Change is good. It's healthy. People are scared of change, but anytime that I've changed when it seemed big and scary and kind of dark out there and I don't know if I want to do it, it's actually worked out very well. So I'd recommend that your listeners not be afraid to change and go ahead and do that self-reset.
Awesome. Well put. And thank you for enjoying the title and the contents of my show. I appreciate that.
No
Mark,
problem.
How can people get in touch with you, listen to your podcast, and see what you're all about?
I mean, the best place to go is naturalborncoaches.com, and that's the central hub. So you'll see the episodes all on there. I mean, obviously, we're on iTunes and Stitcher and everything, but if you go to naturalborncoaches.com, that's where you can find the shows in one place. You can find the blog posts, the resources, and then there's a report that we discuss the 3 questions that every coach must ask themselves as well. So that's a good place to start. And, if anyone in there, in your audience is thinking of getting into coaching, please reach out to me. I'm not the type of person that there's some coaches that don't like doing consultation calls, and they almost really try to stay away from them. But if you want to work with someone, you want to get a sense for what they're about, you have to talk to them. So I've always been very open speaking to, potential clients or people that are curious about coaching. We'll set up a Skype call or something. I'd be glad to talk to you, see if there's any way that I can help. If it's not the right fit, I can at least point you in the right direction and find someone that can help you.
Awesome, Mark. Appreciate your time. Good luck with everything, and congrats on starting out the podcast. And I wish you nothing but the best in 2015.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I had a lot of fun.
Thanks again to Mark for coming on the Operation Self Reset podcast. I really do appreciate his time. Some great insight on coaching, how it can help you excel your own personal life. I guess my own little plug for the last, I'd say about 7 months now. I've been coaching 3 individual different clients on an array of different things in their own personal life, kind of getting going in a new entrepreneur business, somebody that needs help of just kind of staying motivated in their current life. They feel disengaged. And lastly, the last individual has some personal things going on that obviously I don't want to share on here. But I've been assisting people and I've been coaching with people. And I'm not saying that you need to go with me or anything like that, but I'm being dead serious though when I say you got to go and reach out to people, because me personally, I have a speaking coach, I have an entrepreneur coach, and I also have a business enhancement coach. And I know some of these some of these coaches have some kind of weird titles. And if you recall from one of my previous interviews with Dan Pena, he made fun of people that are performance coaches, high performance coaches. He's like, "What the heck is a high performance coach? What do you need that for?" So it's kind of funny the different titles different coaches give themselves. But I'd suggest going out there and reaching out to people that can help you grow more in your own personal life. With that being said, if you are interested in connecting with me, if you have any if you have any questions for me in regards to my own coaching, head on over to your email. Send an email to me, jake@operationselfreset.com. And if coaching is not your thing, and if you're just here for the free content, that's great. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your love. If you wouldn't mind, when you get a chance, when you go home or on your phone when you're not driving, leave a review for this podcast. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And suggest it to your friends, family, loved ones, and whoever you would feel that would benefit from this podcast. Obviously, the more people that get a hold of it, the better. Not only because I want this to grow into something great, but the bigger it is, the better guests I can bring on, the more authority that I have to bring in some A-list people. Now, with that being said, that's it. That's all I really got for you guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. If you have an awesome joke, if a joke that is funnier than the ones that I always pitch on here, send it to me. I'd love to share your joke on the Operation Self Reset podcast. And that's it for today. Stay tuned for next week, Wednesday, for another great episode of the Operation Self Reset podcast. And if you're interested in becoming a subscriber and learning about 7 different key things to get yourself in a good, solid reset, head on over to operationselfreset.com. About middle of the page, there's an email opt-in, and you get my toolbox with 7 awesome resources to kind of inspire you to keep on moving forward. That's it for today. We'll catch you next week, Wednesday. See ya.